74 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. We're moving on to the Washington Huskies, a team that had a lot of expectations coming into next year. A lot of people thought this team could push for the Pac-12 North Division. Of course, now there aren't divisions in the Pac-12, but still, this was a team that could have gone to compete in a conference championship game, a lot of people thought, and then they lost that game week 1, and it all fell downhill from there. Yet, while this Washington team loses quite a bit of pieces, and we'll get there, it's returning a lot of talent. A lot of talent is coming in. It's a Washington team that is expecting a bounce back in 2022. So can they do just that? Can they right the ship and sail into the postseason? Or is this a Washington team that, is going to continue to struggle in 2022? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason. Guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, so you know when I upload your favorite team. And for fans of the Washington Huskies out there, guaranteed you guys are going to know a lot more about this team than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, or hey, I got something wrong, because that happens sometimes, leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read what you guys have to say. So let's talk about Washington in 2022, my 7th ranked team in the Pac-12 coming into the 2022 college football season. And as I stated in my intro, a disappointing year. Last year, they were ranked 20th, I believe, 20th, 21st, somewhere around there to start off the season last year, 20th in the nation, playing Montana, and they were on a roll, looking good, and then things fell off the map. They lost that game. I believe the score was something like 10-7, 13-7, somewhere around there, and Washington lost the game, and it was all downhill from there. I mean, just after that loss, nothing seemed to go Washington's way. Fell well short of a bowl game, and again, nowhere close to contending for a Pac-12 title. And it was the offense, really, last year. Only 323 yards with 21.5 points per game. That's it. That's all Washington did last year. The defense held up their end of the bargain. They were, in terms of yards per game, the second best defense the third best defense, in the Pac-12 last year, with 336 yards and 22.7 points per game. Those 336 yards were 30 less than the next best defense in the Pac-12. So good stuff from the Washington Huskies defensively. You do have to get that offense moving and grooving, though, if Washington's going to have a bounce-back year. Taking a look at some of the players leaving, and also a new head coach coming in for Washington as well, Kalen DeBoer. Remember how good Fresno State was last year? Yeah, that guy comes in to this Washington program, and he's going to lay quite a nice foundation here. So, forgot to mention that throughout this video, but Kalen DeBoer coming in to be that head coach. When you look at some talent leaving this Washington team, lead rusher Sean McGrew is gone. You also have Kamari Pleasant, who was tied for the second leading rusher on this team, gone. But Sean McGrew had 434 yards and 8 touchdowns, and Kamari Pleasant had 308 yards and 2 touchdowns a season ago. So you lose both of those guys off the running back room, and then very well your best wide receiver could be gone as well. Terrell Bynum, I believe, transferred over to USC, had 436 yards and 4 touchdowns a season ago, and one of the best tight ends in the nation a season ago, Cade Otton, who had 28 catches for 250 yards and the touchdown a season ago, went in the NFL draft. You have an offensive lineman leaving, and on the defensive side, Sam Taimani. Jackson Sermon is a linebacker leaving. Sermon was the leading tackler last year with 91 tackles and an interception last year as well, along with MJ Tafisi. And then in the defensive back group, a trio of defensive backs gone pro. Trent McDuffie and Kyler Gordon, of course, were the 1-2 there at the cornerback positions. But then also Brendan Radley-Hiles is also gone there as well. And all those guys posted some pretty good numbers a season ago. So McDuffie with 6 passes defended, Kyler Gordon with 7, 2 interceptions. Brendan Radley-Hiles with 2 sacks, a pick, and 4 passes defended. So you're losing probably your 3 best defensive backs off of this team from a season ago. So you got to find a way to get all of that talent replaced. Very well also could be your best wide receiver. A great pass catcher in Cade Otton is gone as well. So there's a lot to kind of fill in and a lot to replace. And Washington's got to figure out who this quarterback is going to be. Michael Penix transferred in from Indiana Dylan Morris returns returns to this team from last year. Was the starting option a season ago for the Huskies. Had 2,458 yards, but 14 touchdowns and 12 picks would tell you he's got to improve his play. And they have I believe, a 5-star quarterback back there. I'm almost positive Sam Hard was a 5-star coming in. A potential 2024 NFL draft pick if he can get there, but only had 241 yards, a touchdown, and 4 interceptions last year. So they got to figure out who this quarterback is going to be. I think Penix is listed first on a lot of depth charts with then Morris and Huard, so kind of in order there. But I really could see them going with any option here on this board. When you look at the running back position, you got Aaron Dumas, who's a transfer coming in. Probably going to end up being that number one option there. And then Cameron Davis is a running back that's coming back. Also had 308 yards and 2 touchdowns on more carries than Kamari Pleasant. And he should probably that right there should be the 1-2 punch. In the wide receiver position, you are returning your leading receiver from last year with 470 yards and 3 touchdowns, Jalen McMillan. Jalen Polk also comes back, as well as Rome Odunze. I know I probably am mispronouncing names, and I'll butcher some names later, I promise you that, so I apologize in advance. There's an offensive lineman coming back as well. Couple defensive linemen, of course, Zion and Thule coming back. Those last names, I'm not going to try to pronounce because I know I will mess them up, but Zion and Thule, 2 defensive linemen that you have coming back. Thule had a sack last year. Zion is normally a pretty good player there as well. And then you have a defensive linebacker combo, Braylon Trice coming back as well. Cam Bright, who's a transfer over from Pitt, coming in to play linebacker. Edefon Ulofashio, again, probably butchered that name as well, but he was the 3rd leading tackler, also an NFL draft prospect. He's coming back. Christopher Mull is a linebacker from UAB. And then you have Alex Cook and Asa Turner, 2 defensive backs coming back for this team as well. So there's still talent here. They picked up some names from the transfer portal to help out, but is it going to be enough? I think with Kalen DeBoer coming in, though, I think he's going to lay a solid coaching foundation, and he has a pretty good group to work with here. So taking a look now at the Washington schedule, a couple fairly non-interesting non-conference games here against Kent State and Portland State. Probably should be able to win both of those. But then the game that pops out at you, home game in non-conference against Michigan State. Ooh, the Spartans were a pretty good team last year. Could have made a run at the college football playoff. That's an interesting game to watch. In Pac-12 play, you got home games against Stanford, Arizona, Oregon State, Colorado, and then you got games on the road against UCLA, Arizona State, Cal, Oregon, and Washington State to cap off the year in the Apple Cup. So let's kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive on the schedule and starting out with that Michigan State game. Michigan State is returning Peyton Thorne along with some other weapons. Now they're losing star running back Kenneth Walker, and it was a pass defense that just wasn't very good a season ago. Now this is a Washington pass defense that from a season ago was one of the better passing defenses in the entire nation. Only allowed 143 passing yards per game. That, again, part 2, McDuffie, Gordon, and Radley Hiles, who, of course, are all gone. So we'll definitely see how that stacks up this year for Washington. But that's a very, very interesting game. I think Michigan State's going to have a pretty decent passing attack coming into this year. They're getting Jarek Broussard, a transfer from Colorado. Also, they're getting a transfer from Wisconsin, hoping to be that 1-2 punch at running back to find their next version of Kenneth Walker. And the defense is getting some transfers that hopefully will help it improve, especially in the pass game as well. So the early favorite is Michigan State in that game, but Washington gets them at home. And I think that's the test right there, where we're going to see what not only Washington, but also Michigan State are made of going into 2022. When you look at the Pac-12 schedule, you have some pretty favorable matchups at home. I mean, you got Oregon State at home. You don't want to go play them on the road. You got Stanford at home. You don't want to go play them on the road. But there are also a lot of tricky road games. You avoid USC. You avoid Utah. But you got to go on the road to play UCLA, and you got to go on the road to play Oregon. Those are 2 fairly tough games right there. Also on the road against Washington State in the Apple Cup. It's not going to be on Black Friday like it normally is. It's going to be on the Saturday that week. Still an interesting game there on the road against Arizona State. I'd still watch out for on the road against Cal. There are a lot of interesting games on this Washington schedule, and a lot of games that I really could see going either way, which we'll look at now because I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict a team's record going into 2022. So if the game is in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, still don't see you winning, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in the other green are games that you should be able to win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball, and games in green, games I see you winning. So Kent State, Portland State should be wins for the Washington Huskies. When you look in Pac-12 play, Arizona, Colorado, you get both of them at home. You don't have to go on the road to play either of them. I think you should be able to get wins there. So then you just got to look for 2 more wins throughout the rest of the schedule, and Washington is back in the postseason playing in a bowl game. Well, finding 2 more wins here, not the easiest thing in the world because, again, Michigan State, they're going to have a top 25, if not a top 15 ranking going in to next season. So that's going to be a good Michigan State team, and that's going to look to get things rolling again in 2022. I'm favoring the Spartans there in that game against Washington. I'm going to favor Washington at home against Stanford and Oregon State, although those are 2 teams right there that Stanford, I think, could be a little bit of a sleeper in the Pac-12. And then Oregon State there as well, I think, is a sneaky team that's starting to trend in the right direction that a lot of people got to watch out for. And then just a lot of tough road games. So I think you got to look to those 2 games at home, right, against Stanford and Oregon State for probably your 5th and 6th wins to get into bowl contention. Because going on the road here, this is a pretty tricky road slate. Starts out with the road game against UCLA. That's the first road game for Washington this year. It's a UCLA team that a lot of people are high on coming into next year. On the road against Arizona State, they are a dumpster fire right now. A lot of recruiting violations. What's the deal with Herm Edwards? Things like that. They lost a lot to the portal. But it's still a team that reloaded, and who knows what Arizona State's going to be this year. They could be really good or they could be really bad. So that's a game that I have in yellow. The only game here that's in orange or red that I really don't see Washington State win. Now, you could put that UCLA game in orange if you wanted to, but I absolutely would put that Oregon game in orange there as well. Oregon, while they're losing talent, bringing in Dan Lanning to be that coach, there's still a lot of good football players on that team at Oregon, and I don't see Washington going on the road. More likely than not, I think Oregon ends up pulling out that win. But again, you never know. If the Washington team could bounce back in a big way, which I think they can. I think this Washington team, overall, when you look at the schedule, there are a lot of games that set up nice for them to bounce back in a big way. I think in order to do that, you might have to pull off the upset against Michigan State in week 3. But overall, I just don't see them bouncing back in a super big way. I think the ceiling for this team is 8-4. I think Kalen DeBoer, what his goal is going to come in and set a nice, solid foundation for this team, and then you can look to start contending more so down the line for Pac-12 titles in the near future. But for the Washington Huskies, I got them at 6-6. I got them making a bowl game. I think DeBoer is going to lay a nice, solid foundation, is going to get this team moving. Washington may be able to win a game that they quote-unquote shouldn't this year, but the Huskies, I think, are going to be back in the postseason. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, do anything like that to help support the channel. And hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.